what you need to know today starts in Green Bay, where the problem between the Packers and quarterback Aaron Rodgers continues. It's finally real now, to the extent anybody was like, well, we'll wait and see what happens if and when he shows up for mandatory minicamp. Now, there's reason to say, doesn't mean he won't be there for training camp, but he's not there for mandatory minicamp. And let's start it off, Chris, because we talked about it yesterday extensively. And I get complaints from people that we spent time talking about. You said, what the hell else were we going to talk about yesterday? It's the reigning MVP of the National Football League who has held out of mandatory minicamp. Who's ever done that? What franchise quarterback ever does that? What reigning MVP is ever anything but all in with his team the next year? It's the most significant story in the NFL. And I got pushback. Baby, spend 40 minutes talking about Aaron Rodgers. Yes. Why wouldn't we, Chris?
I mean, of course. He's the biggest story in the NFL right now. Yeah, and everything you laid out, why wouldn't we? It's mandatory minicamp. It's relevant to the day. We know he's still not happy. And like you said, this situation, it's unheard of, where it's the best player on a team, an MVP, is dealing with, a team trying to replace him. And, of course, he wants security and all those things. So, yeah, I mean, listen, we haven't seen anything like this that I can remember, really, since John Elway and Maddox, right, in the early 90s, maybe similar to this. But I feel like that was even done in a different way. So, of course, this is going to be the major story on the show.
The one guy who is blameless in all of this, the one guy who has, above all others, the right to be sorry in advance, Manchester, pissed off about what's going on, is the guy who didn't make this mess, hasn't contributed to this mess, and is just taking care of business with a 26-6 regular season record in 2 years. Head coach Matt Lafleur, here he is yesterday talking about the situation.
I'm not going to get into my conversations with Aaron and the communication, and I think, I'm naturally optimistic, but again, we'll take it day by day and just do whatever we can to help remedy this situation.
How much, if anything, do y'all lose by him not being here for these 3 days, and how much does that answer change if maybe he's not here for the start of training camp either?
Well, Steve, I think Aaron's got a ton of experience, and he's not a guy that I worry about particularly that much. He's a pro's pro. I know he knows how to take care of his body and get himself ready to play, so that is not much of a concern for us at all.
Two quick observations on the tail end of that, Christopher. First, a pro's pros at mandatory minicamp. If you're a pro's pro, you're there for the things that are labeled mandatory. You're there. Pro's pro, mandatory minicamp goes together. Secondly, takes care of his body. Last time we saw him, he's down 15 pounds. He's eating okra or something like, I don't know what it was, the Tom Brady method.
Yeah, he's definitely on some sort of cleanse. Right.
Yeah, he's not looking like quarterback body right now. He's looking like post-football body right now. So I don't know that he's properly taking care of his body. So I look, LaFleur is saying what he has to say to not further inflame the situation, but he has to be beside himself. And like I said, he's the only one in all this who has the right to say, this is not my mess. I didn't cause this mess.
Right.
I haven't contributed to this mess, and I'm the one that has to go out and talk about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, he's going to have to deal with it. That's why he's the head coach. There's no doubt about that. I mean, first off, Rodgers, yeah, this is a weird situation, but I do think he's a guy that, again, we're not going to worry about him coming to training camp out of shape, or he hasn't thrown enough footballs and he's got tendonitis in his elbow. That's what he means by that. And I also think, because of this, again, I know we talked about this with the cleanse and all of that a few weeks ago when he was on with Kenny Mayne. That's one of the reasons I didn't think he'd be at, the mandatory mini camps and OTAs. Remember, I said it kind of looks like he's just getting ready. His offseason started. I'm going to lose the weight, get really clean, my body humming on all cylinders, and then I'm going to start to work out and put weight on and start doing sprints and running and things like that. So he's basically started his offseason process way late because he's been dealing with the drama of some of this stuff early on in the offseason. But like the guy we saw there, to me, he's the key to the situation. Even though he's not to blame, He's the guy that's going to make it happen and soothe it over and talk to him and, eventually maybe get Rodgers in a place where he's just like, hey, man, come on, hey, the front office, screw them, but we want you back. Come on, let's do something together. It's going to be on him and how he approaches that relationship and continues to make Rodgers feel comfortable from the coaching end and the locker room end to kind of coax him back in there. And I think that's where, Matt Lafleur is going to have to earn some money over the next month just to make sure that all goes smooth.
And it's a minefield for him, because if he's having communications directly with Rodgers and says something to Rodgers, that Rodgers then, if he ever has any communications with Brian Gutekunst or Mark Murphy, Rodgers says, well, Lafleur told me this. Or if Lafleur says something to Gutekunst or Murphy, and then they say to Rodgers, well, Lafleur told me this. I mean, he really is in the middle of this. He's caught in the crossfire. Anything he says can and will be potentially used against him, maybe not maliciously, but you're trying to mediate this dispute, and you're dealing with some fairly stubborn individuals.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.